Sit on it. The pronuba's fingers crushed Claudia's shoulders. The wooden idol towered before her, 4 feet of carved obscenity glistening in lamplight. No, every Roman bride sits. Your mother sat, your grandmother sat. Now you. Claudia's scream ripped through marble walls. The physician stepped closer, leather bag clinking. 7 witnesses lined the room like executioners. Her husband leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. The law is clear, the pronuba hissed. You have no rights here. You belong to him now. Submit. Subscribe now. Stay until the end. Comment your city below. Let's see how far this truth travels. Now let me take you back to the moment Claudia's life shattered. Claudia woke to her mother screaming. Not words, just sound. Raw and broken, like an animal caught in a trap. She bolted upright. Mother? Julia Marcella stood at the window, back rigid fists pressed against her mouth, trying to swallow the sound. Failing. Mother, what happened? Julia spun around. Her face, God's her face, swollen eyes, tear-tracked cheeks. The look of someone who'd been crying for hours, for years. Nothing. Her voice cracked. Today is your wedding day. The words should have been joyful. They tasted like poison. Claudia's stomach dropped. You're terrified. I'm fine. You're lying. Julia crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed Claudia's wrists. Her hands were ice cold, trembling. Listen to me. Each word came out sharp, desperate. Tonight, whatever they do, don't fight. What do you mean, whatever they do? Promise me you won't resist. Mother, you're scaring me. Promise. Julia's nails dug into skin. Drew blood. Claudia stared at the wild thing her mother had become. This woman who'd never raised her voice, never lost composure, never broke. Now shaking like a leaf before storm. What happens tonight that does this to women? I promise, Claudia whispered. Julia released her, stepped back, composed her face with visible effort, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her stola. When she spoke again, her voice was flat. Dead. Good. Now let's make you beautiful. Tom. 3 slave women entered. Silent. Efficient. They wouldn't look at Claudia's face. Why won't they look at me? They stripped her. Bathed her in rose water that smelled like funeral flowers. Dried her with linen that felt like burial cloths. Her mother picked up the ceremonial spearhead, ancient iron rust-spotted cold as January. Why a spear to part my hair? Claudia asked. To invoke Mars. Julia scraped the metal across Claudia's scalp. Hard. To ensure your womb produces warriors. That's not the real reason. Julia's hands froze. No. Then why? To remind you marriage isn't gentle. The spearhead bit deeper. It's conquest. Claudia felt blood trickle down her temple. The braiding took forever. 6 sections, 6 braids. Ribbons the color of dried blood wound so tight her head throbbed. Each pull felt deliberate, punitive. They're preparing me for something worse than marriage. Then came the tunic suffibulum tied with the knot of Hercules that only her husband could untie. The symbolism made Claudia want to vomit. She was a package, a sealed container, property awaiting transfer. Finally, the flammium, the flame-colored veil that marked her as bride. Through the orange gauze, the world looked like it was burning. You were happy at Aunt Marcella's wedding, Claudia said quietly. Why are you crying at mine? Julia's hands stilled on the veil. For a long moment, silence. Then, because I love you, and I can't protect you from what happens next. Before Claudia could respond, her father's voice boomed from the atrium. The hour arrives. Let the bride be brought forth. Gone. The procession. Marcus Cornelius. Marcella beamed like a man who'd won the chariot races. His youngest daughter was marrying up a magistrate with imperial connections. The dowry had bankrupted him, but the alliance made it worthwhile. If everything went according to plan tonight, if the witnesses could testify, if the examination proved satisfactory, he gripped Claudia's arm. Today, you bring honor to our family. Honor? Is that what they call it? Smile, he hissed. This cost me everything. Don't ruin it. The procession began. Torchbearers led through narrow streets. Musicians played. Crowds gathered. Then the singing started. Young men, drunk leering, began chanting Fescennine verses, ancient fertility songs, obscene fertility songs. The bride goes to the marriage bed. May his sword pierce deep and true. Laughter erupted. Women old enough to be grandmothers cackled and clapped. May her gate swing wide, may he thrust until dawn. Claudia's face burned beneath the veil. This was supposed to be blessing. This public humiliation, may she scream tonight. May she scream in 9 months. May her womb never rest. The crowd roared approval. They're not celebrating. They're warning me. Her mother walked 3 paces behind, silent as a ghost. Ars, the temple of Juno. Lucius Flavius Sabinus waited at the base of the steps. Claudia had met him twice before today. Twice. Both times surrounded by relatives, both times for less than an hour. He was 42, more than twice her age. His face was handsome in a carved marble way. Expensive. Cold. When he looked at her, he assessed like a merchant evaluating grain quality. Marcus Cornelius Marcella. Lucius extended his hand to her father. You bring me a worthy bride. Untouched, verified by examination 3 days ago. Marcus spoke loud enough for witnesses to hear. Healthy, obedient, good bloodline. She'll serve you well. I'm not here. I'm not a person in this conversation. I'm livestock. The priest appeared skeletal, ancient, robed in ceremonial purple. Let the sacrifice be brought. 2 slaves dragged a white sheep to the altar. The animal bleated once. Trusting, unaware. The priest raised the knife, chanted in archaic Latin, drew the blade across the sheep's throat in one practiced motion. Blood poured, steamed. The copper smell hit Claudia like a fist. The sheep's legs buckled, its eyes rolled back showing white. The priest carved it open, pulled out glistening intestines, examined them like sacred scrolls. The omens are favorable. His voice echoed off marble. The gods approve this union, proceed. Favorable. The gods approved her being sold like property. Her father recited the formula. I give you this woman for the production of legitimate children according to ancestral custom. Lucius responded, I accept this woman into my hand and household. She is mine to govern. Then Claudia spoke the words that erased her existence. Ubi tu Gaius ego Gaia. Where you are, I am. Where you go, I follow. I have no separate identity. I am yours. The witnesses, 10 male citizens whose testimony held legal weight, murmured approval and signed the contract. Her father accepted token payment. The priest blessed them. And just like that, Claudia Marcella died. Claudia Sabina was born, a woman with no rights, no legal existence, subject to her husband's absolute authority. But the real ceremony hasn't started yet. Everyone here knows that. This is just paperwork. The test comes tonight. The walk to the villa. Afternoon light slanted long and red. The procession reformed. Musicians played something between wedding march and funeral dirge. The obscene songs resumed louder now, cruder, as if formal vows had given permission for masks to drop. Crowds threw walnuts hard. They struck Claudia's shoulders. Her arms bounced off her veil. Fertility blessings, someone had told her once. Blessings don't leave bruises. Lucius walked beside her. He hadn't spoken a single word to her since leaving the temple. Not one word to his new wife. Her mother followed 3 paces back, still silent, still rigid with knowledge she couldn't share. What did they do to you, Mother? What will they do to me? By the time they reached Lucius's villa, the sun touched the horizon. Blood red, dying. The house was enormous, white marble, 3 stories. High walls that blocked out street noise. Torches blazed on either side of the entrance. The doorway wore wreaths of greenery and white wool. Beautiful. Like a decorated cage. Lucius paused at the threshold, turned to face her. This was the ritual carrying husband lifts bride over threshold to avoid bad omens of stumbling. But as his hands closed around her waist, Claudia understood the real meaning. The rape of the Sabine women, Rome's founding myth, men stealing wives, carrying them over thresholds while they screamed. This isn't about omens, it's about power. He lifted her easily. For a moment, her feet dangled helpless over the threshold. Then he carried her inside. Set her down. The door boomed shut behind them. The singing outside faded. And Claudia saw who'd been waiting. The atrium. 7 people stood in a semicircle, an elderly woman in ceremonial robes, face like weathered stone. The pranuba, the overseer, a priest in dark robes carrying a clay lamp and scroll, 3 female slaves holding basins and folded linen, a man in his 50s with a leather bag, clean hands, surgeon's hands, the physician, and in the corner beneath draped linen something tall, ominous, hidden. Claudia's heart hammered so loud she could feel it in her teeth. The pranuba stepped forward. Her grip on Claudia's arm was iron. "Welcome to your husband's house." Her voice was flat, mechanical. "The public ceremony is complete. Now the sacred rites begin." "What rites?" Claudia's voice came out small. "The verification." Matter of fact, as if explaining how to salt fish. "Confirmation of your purity. Witnessed consummation. Examination that will legitimize your future children." "I don't understand." "You will." The pranuba's fingers dug deeper. "First you greet Mutinus Tutinus and seek his blessing. Come." She dragged Claudia toward the corner, toward the draped thing. Claudia's legs wanted to collapse. The pranuba's grip kept her upright. "Mother?" She looked back desperately. Julia stood frozen near the door, tears streaming, mouth working silently. She knows. She knows what's under that cloth. She knows, and she can't save me. "Your mother cannot help you," the pranuba said. "No one can. This is law. This is custom. This is what Roman wives endure." They stopped before the shrouded figure. The pranuba gripped the linen. "When I remove this," she said, "you will understand what the gods require, what every bride before you has endured, and you will submit." The room held its breath. The physician opened his leather bag. Metal instruments clinked. Her husband leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face blank. A man who'd done this before with his first wife. A man who knew exactly what came next, who felt no need to explain. "Please," Claudia whispered. The pranuba yanked the cloth away. The wooden figure stood 4 feet tall, dark oak polished to a gleam. It had no face, no arms, no human features except one. A phallus, massive, deliberate, obscenely detailed down to veins carved into the wood. Mounted on a base inscribed with prayers to Mutinus Tutinus, the god whose name decent people didn't speak. The god of initiation. The god who ruled this moment. Claudia's vision blurred. The room tilted. "No," barely a whisper. "I can't, you will." The pranuba's grip shifted to her shoulders, iron fingers crushing down. Every bride sits upon the god before her husband touches her. Law, custom. Your mother did this. Your grandmother, every respectable woman in Rome. Now you. I'll scream. Scream. These walls are thick. No one comes. Your father has left. Your mother will be escorted out. You're in your husband's house now, under his authority. The law gives you to him completely. Claudia looked at her mother one last time. Julia's lips moved. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." A slave opened the door. Gently but firmly led Julia into the night. The door closed. Claudia was alone with witnesses, with the physician, with her husband, with the wooden god. "Now," the pranuba said, "disrobe." "What? Remove the tunic. You cannot honor the god clothed." Claudia's hands shook so violently she couldn't grip the fabric. The pranuba sighed, gestured to the slaves. They moved forward, efficient, practiced. Untied the knot of Hercules, the knot only her husband was supposed to untie, but apparently that tradition meant nothing here. They pulled the tunic over her head. Claudia stood naked before 7 strangers. The lamplight made shadows dance across her skin. She wanted to cover herself. wanted to disappear, wanted to die. Good, the pronuba said. Now, approach the god. I can't. You can. You will. The old woman's voice dropped to something almost gentle. Almost. Child, listen. Fighting makes it worse. Resistance prolongs suffering. Every bride learns this. Learn it quickly. Claudia's breath came in ragged gasps. Tears streamed down her face. This can't be real. This can't be what marriage means. But the wooden god stood waiting. The witnesses stood watching. The physician stood ready. And her husband? Her husband smiled. Not cruel, not kind, just satisfied. A man whose property was being properly verified before final transfer. I'll guide you, the pronuba said. Step forward. Claudia's feet moved. She wasn't controlling them. Some survival instinct had taken over, some deep knowledge that resistance would only bring worse things. The pronuba positioned her before the idol. Now, sit. Please. Sit upon Mutinus Tatinus. Seek his blessing. Demonstrate your submission to the gods and your husband. Claudia looked at the carved wood, at the obscene thing she was supposed to numb. No, this isn't real. This can't be now. The pronuba's hands pressed down on her shoulders. Claudia's knees buckled. She was falling toward the idol. The wooden surface rough and splintered, and she tried to resist, tried to pull away. The pronuba shoved harder. And Claudia understood. This wasn't about fertility, wasn't about gods. This was about breaking her, humiliating her, destroying any sense that her body belonged to herself. This was the real marriage ceremony. Her scream when wood touched flesh was animal, primal, the sound of something dying. The witnesses didn't blink. The physician made a note on his wax tablet. Her husband nodded approval, and the pronuba held her down. Good, the old woman murmured. The god accepts your offering. Now we may proceed to the examination. Dawn. Claudia couldn't stand. Her legs wouldn't hold her. The slaves caught her as she slumped, carried her to a wooden bench against the wall. One brought a basin of warm water, another soft cloths. They washed her, gentle, methodical, murmuring prayers meant to purify her after contact with the god. But the cleansing had a second purpose. Preparation. The physician stepped forward. Hold her, he said calmly. The slaves gripped her arms and legs. Not cruel, not kind, just firm, practiced. Women who'd done this before, many times. What are you doing? Claudia's voice cracked. Verification, the physician said. Before the consummation, I must examine you, document your current state. Later, after your husband has completed his duty, I will examine you again. The comparison proves the marriage was legally consummated. You're going to touch you. Yes. Examine you internally. Yes. Record my findings. Yes. He pulled instruments from his bag. Metal glinted in lamplight. This is standard procedure for any marriage involving significant property or lineage. Your husband paid good money for verified virginity. Now we verify. Claudia tried to pull away. The slaves held firm. Please, she whispered. Please, I'm a person. You're a wife. The physician's voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. Your body is your husband's property now. Property must be inspected before final transfer. Hold still. This will be easier if you don't fight. He knelt before her. The witnesses watched, her husband watched, and Claudia learned what it meant to have no rights, no autonomy, no existence outside what men decided she was worth. The examination lasted 10 minutes. It felt like hours. When it was done, the physician made detailed notes on his tablet, drew a diagram, signed it, had 3 witnesses countersign. Virgin, he announced, intact, undamaged, suitable for consummation. The pronuba nodded. Then let the consummation proceed. Bring her to the bridal chamber. The slaves helped Claudia to her feet. She could barely walk. They led her down a corridor, through a doorway, into a room prepared for what came next. The bed was positioned so it could be seen clearly from the doorway, because the doorway, the pronuba explained, would remain open through the night. For observation, the old woman said, to ensure proper completion, to allow witnesses to testify if the marriage is ever challenged. Oil lamps burned bright, too bright, every shadow banished, nothing hidden. Slaves waited nearby with more basins, more cloths. Everything felt staged, arranged, prepared for performance rather than intimacy. Claudia stood beside the bed trembling. The pronuba arranged her hair, positioned her body, gave instructions in that flat mechanical voice. When your husband enters, you will lie on your back. You will not resist. You will not refuse. If you cry out, that is acceptable. Many brides do. But you will not fight. Do you understand? Claudia couldn't speak, couldn't nod, could barely breathe. Do you understand? Harsher now. Yes. Good. The pronuba stepped back. He will enter now. Remember, I will observe from the doorway. The slaves will remain near. If you resist, if you fight, I am authorized to restrain you. This marriage will be completed. The only choice you have is whether it is difficult or merely unpleasant. Footsteps in the corridor. Lucius Flavius Sabinus entered the room. He paused at the doorway, glanced at the pronuba, at the slaves, at the lamps burning too bright. Then his eyes found Claudia. And for just a moment, one brief moment, something flickered across his face. Not desire, not affection, uncertainty, maybe even discomfort, as if even he knew this wasn't right, wasn't how it should be. But the moment passed. He stepped toward the bed. Let the union be completed, the pronuba intoned from the doorway, according to ancestral custom. Let those present bear witness. Let no doubt remain. And the night began. Lucius stopped at the foot of the bed. For a long moment he just stood there, looking at her, through her. Like she was a map he was memorizing. Claudia's breath came in shallow gasps. Her hands clutched the linen sheet beneath her knuckles white. He's going to touch me. He's going to... You're terrified, he said quietly. She couldn't answer, couldn't move. He sighed, removed his toga with practiced efficiency, folding it carefully over a chair. Then his tunic. His movements were methodical, clinical, like a man preparing for business, not intimacy. I'll make this quick, he said. The witnesses need to see completion. After that, you can rest. Quick, as if speed makes this better, as if anything makes this better. He approached the bed. The mattress dipped under his weight. From the doorway, the pronuba's voice, remember on your back, no resistance. Lucius glanced toward the door, and something tightened in his jaw. Annoyance, maybe embarrassment. He doesn't like this either, but he's doing it anyway. His hand touched her shoulder. Claudia flinched violently. Don't, he said, not cruel, just tired. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She wanted to scream that this was impossible, that nothing could be harder than having 7 strangers watch while his weight pressed down. Claudia squeezed her eyes shut, tried to leave her body, tried to float away to somewhere safe, somewhere far from this room, this bed, this man who owned her now. But she couldn't escape. Pain tethered her to reality, sharp, tearing, the kind of pain that makes your vision white out. She heard herself cry out. Couldn't stop it. From the doorway, normal, first time, always hurts, continue. Normal. They think this is normal. Lucius's breathing quickened. His movements became more urgent, less controlled. Claudia bit down on her lip hard enough to taste blood. Anything to keep from screaming again. Anything to maintain some scrap of dignity in this nightmare. This is my wedding night. This is what every girl dreams about. This is... It ended. Lucius pulled away, breathing hard. Sweat gleamed on his shoulders in the lamplight. He stood, walked to the basin where slaves waited with water and cloths. They cleaned him without a word. Claudia lay motionless, staring at the ceiling, feeling wetness between her legs, blood, or something else, or both. She didn't know, didn't want to know. It's over. Please let it be over. The pronuba entered the room, leaned over Claudia with those cold, assessing eyes. Good. Blood. That's what we need to see. She gestured to the slaves. Clean her. Prepare her for the second examination. Second? The word came out as a croak. The physician must verify completion. Compare findings to the first examination. Document the changes. This is how legitimacy is established. Claudia wanted to laugh, or sob, or both. They're going to examine me again. After this. After everything. The slaves moved in with their basins and cloths. One of them, the youngest, maybe 19, met Claudia's eyes for just a moment. And in that moment, Claudia saw recognition, understanding, shared horror. You've been through this, haven't you? Every woman in Rome has been through this. They cleaned her gently. One whispered something under her breath, a prayer maybe, or words of comfort too quiet to make out. Then the physician returned. On your back, he instructed. Knees up. Claudia's body obeyed while her mind screamed. Some part of her had disconnected completely. Some survival mechanism that let her float above the scene watching it happen to someone else. That's not me on the table. That's not my body being prodded and examined like livestock. That's someone else. Some other girl. The physician worked quickly, professional, making notes on his wax tablet between observations. Hymen torn. Bleeding consistent with first penetration. Internal bruising present. Evidence of recent semen deposit. He nodded to himself. Consummation verified. He stood, signed his tablet, held it out to the pronuba. She examined it, nodded, added her signature. Turned to the 3 witnesses who'd remained throughout. You have observed the examination. We have, they said in unison. You can testify to the findings. We can. Then this marriage is complete under law. The bride has been properly transferred. Her virginity has been verified and surrendered to her legal husband. Any children born of this union will be recognized as legitimate heirs. She rolled up the tablet, handed it to Lucius, who'd dressed and now stood near the door. Your property is secure, the pronuba said. Congratulations on your marriage. Property. She'd said it out loud. No euphemism, no pretense. Lucius took the tablet. Thank you. You may all leave now. The pronuba bowed slightly. The physician gathered his instruments. The witnesses filed out. The slaves hesitated. You as well, Lucius said. They glanced at Claudia, still lying on the bed, still naked, still bleeding, then left. The door closed. For the first time since entering his house, Claudia was alone with her husband. He walked to a table, poured wine from a pitcher, drank deeply. You can cover yourself, he said without turning around. Claudia pulled the blood-stained sheet over her body. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the fabric. Lucius finished his wine, poured another cup, stared into it. My first wife, he said suddenly, screamed for 3 hours straight, fought, bit one of the witnesses. They had to hold her down for the entire consummation. Claudia said nothing. What was there to say? The pronuba told her the same thing she told you. Resistance only makes it worse. She didn't listen. He drank again. She never forgave me. 15 years of marriage, 3 children, and she looked at me every day like I was the man who'd raped her. You did rape her, you raped me. The law just calls it marriage. She died 2 years ago. Fever. He set down the cup. I thought this time would be different. I thought if I married a younger girl, someone who hadn't heard the horror stories yet, it would be easier. He finally turned to face her. Was it easier? Claudia stared at him. This man who'd watched her humiliation, who'd participated in her violation, who now wanted, what absolution gratitude? No, she whispered. It wasn't easier. Something flickered across his face. Disappointment, maybe, or relief that she was honest. Well, he picked up his toga. It's done now. The marriage is legal. Your father has his alliance. I have my verified heir-producing wife. Everyone gets what they wanted. Except me. The words came out before she could stop them. Lucius paused, looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. No, he said quietly, except you. He left the room. Claudia heard his footsteps fade down the corridor, heard a distant door close. She was alone. Finally alone. And that's when she broke. Sobs tore through her chest. great heaving animal sounds that she'd been holding back for hours. Her whole body shook with them. This is my life now. This is what I am. Property, livestock, a womb to produce heirs. She cried until her throat was raw, until no more tears would come, until she was empty. Then she lay in the darkness staring at nothing, feeling blood slowly dry on her thighs. Mother knew. She knew and she couldn't stop it. She went through this. Grandmother went through this. Every woman in Rome goes through this, and we all stay silent. Sign. Claudia must have slept. She didn't remember sleeping, but suddenly grey dawn light filtered through the window and a slave was shaking her shoulder gently. Domina, you must rise. The morning ceremony awaits. Ceremony? Her voice came out hoarse. The bride greets her new household. All the slaves will be presented. Your husband's clients will come to offer congratulations. You must be dressed and composed. Composed? They want me composed after last night. 2 more slaves entered carrying fresh tunics and jewelry. They pulled back the blood-stained sheet, bundling it carefully, presumably as evidence to be stored, and helped Claudia stand. Her body screamed in protest. Every muscle ached. Between her legs felt like fire. A warm bath will help, one slave murmured. I'll prepare willow bark tea for the pain. They led her to the bathing room, immersed her in hot water that stung the raw places, washed her hair, dressed her in a matronly stola different from the virgin's tunic she'd worn yesterday, braided her hair in the style of married women. When she looked in the polished bronze mirror, she barely recognized herself. That's not a 17-year-old girl. That's a Roman wife. They look different. Beautiful, one slave said encouragingly. Your husband will be pleased. Claudia wanted to laugh, to scream, to ask if they knew what pleased meant in this house. But she said nothing. The slaves led her to the atrium where the household had gathered. 40 slaves, kitchen workers, cleaners, labourers, personal attendants. They lined up in rows, silent and still. Lucius stood at the head of the room. He'd changed clothes, looked fresh, rested, as if last night had been unremarkable. My wife, he announced, gesturing to Claudia. She is now mistress of this household. You will obey her in domestic matters. You will show her respect. She speaks with my authority. The slaves bowed. Authority, what a joke. I couldn't even control what happened to my own body last night. Then the clients began arriving. Dozens of them men who owed Lucius political favours or business debts coming to pay respects and curry favour. They congratulated him on his marriage, praised Claudia's beauty, made jokes about wedding nights that made her stomach turn. She smiled, said the appropriate words, played her part. This is what they wanted, a pretty ornament who knows her place. The receiving line lasted 2 hours. By the time the last client left, Claudia's face hurt from fake smiling. You did well, Lucius said. Better than I expected. What did you expect? For me to scream the truth, to tell them all what you did? Thank you, husband. The words tasted like ash. He studied her for a moment. I have business in the forum today. You'll have time to rest. Familiarize yourself with the house. The head cook will consult with you about dinner preparations. Of course. He left. Claudia stood in the empty atrium, surrounded by marble and luxury and beautiful things she owned in theory, but could never truly possess. Because I don't even possess myself. Or is she? The days blurred together. Wake, dress, oversee household, greet clients, manage slaves, prepare dinner, eat with Lucius in silence, retire to separate sleeping rooms. Thank the gods for that small mercy. Except every third night. Every third night, Lucius came to her room. The pronoba was gone. The witnesses were gone. But the pattern remained. He would enter. She would submit. He would finish and leave. No conversation, no tenderness. Just duty performed and obligation met. After the third time, Claudia stopped crying. There were no tears left. After the 10th time, she stopped feeling it. She'd learned the trick how to leave her body, how to float above the scene, how to be somewhere else while it happened. After the 20th time, she understood. This is marriage, not the ceremonies, not the legal documents, not the public celebrations. This silent, repeated violation that no one acknowledges. This is what they mean when they say wifely duties. 6 weeks after her wedding, she missed her monthly bleeding. The household midwife examined her and confirmed what Claudia already knew: pregnant. When she told Lucius, he smiled. Actually smiled. The first genuine emotion she'd seen from him. "Excellent," he said. "A son born within a year of marriage. Perfect timing." That night he came to her room with wine and honeyed cakes. "To celebrate," he said. She wanted to throw them in his face. Wanted to scream that there was nothing to celebrate. That he'd done this to her. That this thing growing inside her was proof of ownership, not love. But she smiled, accepted the wine, ate the cake. Because resistance was pointless. Because she'd learned her lesson. Because Roman wives swallow their rage and call it duty. The pregnancy was difficult. Constant nausea. Exhaustion that made her bones feel like lead. Her body transforming into something she didn't recognize. Lucius hired the best physicians, made sure she ate properly, restricted her activities to protect the baby. He cares about the heir. Not me. Never me. In the 7th month, her mother came to visit. Julia looked older, greyer, as if the weight of shared knowledge had aged her prematurely. They sat in the garden while slaves brought cool drinks, made small talk about weather and politics and anything except what mattered. Finally, when they were alone, Julia spoke. "You hate me." Claudia stared at her mother. "Yes, I don't blame you." Julia's voice cracked. "You think I should have warned you, told you what to expect. You knew. You knew everything they would do to me. And what good would warning do?" Julia's eyes filled with tears. "What would change? You'd marry anyway. The law demands it. Your father demands it. Society demands it. The only difference is you'd suffer twice, once in anticipation, once in reality. I deserve to know. You deserved a different world." Julia gripped Claudia's hand. "But we don't get the world we deserve. We get Rome. And in Rome, daughters are currency. Wives are property. Bodies are assets to be traded and verified and documented. Did you feel this way after your wedding? Every woman feels this way. We just learn not to speak it." Julia wiped her eyes. "Your grandmother went through it. I went through it. Now you. And when your daughter grows up..." "Stop." Claudia pulled her hand away. Don't tell me my daughter will endure this." "Then you'll have to change the world." Julia's laugh was bitter. "Good luck. Rome has stood for 800 years. It's perfected the art of breaking women while calling it civilization." "Then civilization is a lie." "Yes." Julia stood, smoothed her stola. "But it's the only civilization we have, so we smile. We endure. We produce heirs. And we teach our daughters to do the same." She left. Claudia sat alone in the garden, one hand on her swollen belly, feeling the baby kick. "I'm bringing a child into this world. This brutal, beautiful, monstrous world. What kind of mother does that show?" The labour lasted 18 hours. Claudia had heard childbirth was painful. No one mentioned it was dying slowly while everyone watched. She screamed until her throat bled, begged for it to stop, pleaded with gods she'd stopped believing in. The midwife was calm, professional. "Push. You must push." "I can't." "You will. Every woman does. Every woman. Like we're all part of some grinding machine, producing babies, producing heirs, producing the next generation to be broken. One final push. One final scream that felt like her body splitting in half. Then a different cry, high and thin. New life. "A son," the midwife announced. "Healthy, strong lungs." She placed the baby on Claudia's chest. Tiny, perfect, covered in blood and vernix, eyes squeezed shut against the harsh world he'd just entered. Claudia stared at him. This person who'd grown inside her. This little human made from her violation. I should feel love. Isn't that what mothers feel? She felt nothing. Empty. Carved hollow by 18 hours of agony. The midwife took the baby to clean him. Lucius entered the room he'd been waiting outside as was proper. "A son." Pride filled his voice. "You've done well. I've done my duty. produced the required heir, fulfilled my purpose. His name? The midwife asked. Marcus, Lucius said, after my father, Marcus Flavius Sabinus. He didn't ask Claudia's opinion. Why would he? The baby was his property. She'd just been the vessel. Lucius left to make the official announcement, to accept congratulations, to celebrate his son. Claudia lay in the blood-soaked bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many more times she'd have to do this, how many more children she'd be expected to produce, how many more years of being used and emptied and called blessed for it. The midwife returned with the baby. He needs to nurse. She placed him at Claudia's breast. His tiny mouth latched on instinctively, started sucking, and something shifted. Not love, not yet, but connection, recognition. This baby didn't ask to be born, didn't ask to be part of this system. He's as trapped as I am. She touched his soft head. His tiny fingers wrapped around one of hers with surprising strength. Hey, she whispered. Hey, little one. He made a small sound, kept nursing. I'm sorry, Claudia said quietly. I'm sorry you were born into Rome. I'm sorry your father is who he is. I'm sorry the world is cruel and broken and refuses to change. The baby's eyes opened, dark, unfocused, looking at nothing and everything. But I'll try to protect you, from as much as I can, for as long as I can. It was a promise she knew she couldn't keep. Rome was too powerful, too entrenched, too determined to shape boys into men who would perpetuate the same brutalities their fathers had. But she made the promise anyway. Because what else could she do? So, 3 months after Marcus was born, Claudia's father died. Heart failure, the physicians said. Quick, peaceful. She didn't cry at the funeral. She stood beside Lucius holding baby Marcus, watching her father's body burn on the pyre, feeling nothing. You sold me, traded me for political advantage, called it honor. Her mother stood on the other side of the pyre, veiled in black shoulders shaking. Does she mourn him? Or does she mourn the life he forced on her, the daughter he sacrificed after the ceremony? Julia approached. I'm moving to my brother's villa in Pompeii, she said. Can't stay in your father's house. It goes to your brother now. Pompeii is far. Yes. Julia looked at baby Marcus. He's beautiful. He's a boy. He'll grow up to be like his father. Maybe, or maybe you'll teach him differently. Julia met Claudia's eyes. Maybe one generation can break the pattern. You don't believe that? No. Julia's smile was sad. But I want to. She left Rome 3 days later. Claudia never saw her again. The years crawled by. Marcus learned to walk, to talk, to become a small person with opinions and demands. Claudia had 2 more children, another boy, then a girl. Each pregnancy, each birth, each recovery carved away more of who she'd been, until she couldn't remember the 17-year-old girl who'd walked into this house believing marriage might be bearable. That girl was dead, killed on her wedding night, buried under years of duty and silence. What remained was a Roman matron, dignified, composed, respected, empty. She managed the household flawlessly, hosted dinners for Lucius's political allies, raised children who would never know what their father had done to their mother, played the role so well that even she sometimes forgot it was a role. But late at night, alone in her room, she remembered. She remembered the wooden god, the examination, the witnesses, the blood. She remembered every violation, every duty performed, every time she'd swallowed rage and called it marriage. And she understood why her mother had cried on her wedding morning, because there's no escape, no rebellion possible, no way out except death. So we endure, and we teach our daughters to endure. And the machine grinds on. Rome had perfected it, the art of breaking half the population while calling it civilization, while building marble temples and grand laws and philosophical treatises about virtue, all built on the silent suffering of women whose voices were never recorded, whose pain was never acknowledged, whose existence was reduced to legal property and reproductive function. Claudia Sabina lived that life for 43 years. She never spoke about her wedding night. Neither did any other woman she knew. The silence was perfect, complete, unbreakable, and Rome called it tradition. Claudia's daughter turned 13 on a spring morning that smelled like jasmine and blood. The girl Livia, named after Lucius's mother, sat in the garden braiding flowers into chains, humming, happy, unaware. Claudia watched from the doorway, feeling ice spread through her chest. She's the same age I was when father started negotiating my marriage. 2 years until some man buys her. 4 years until Livia looked up smiling. Come help me. These roses keep falling apart. Claudia forced her feet to move, sat beside her daughter on the stone bench. Livia's hands were quick and clever, weaving stems together. Marcus says I should learn weaving instead of playing with flowers. He says wife work is serious. Marcus is 15. He knows nothing about wife work. He says father is looking for a husband for me, a good match, someone important. Livia's voice carried excitement, not fear. Is it true? The ice in Claudia's chest turned to shards. Who told you this? I heard father talking to his friends last night. They were discussing alliances, dowries. One of them has a son, 22 years old. Father seemed interested. 22, 9 years older than Livia, the same age gap Claudia and Lucius had. Does the idea frighten you? Claudia kept her voice steady. Livia shrugged. Why would it? Marriage is what girls do. You married father, grandmother married grandfather. It's normal. Normal. Gods, she thinks it's normal. Livia. Claudia gripped her daughter's hands, crushing the flower chain between them. Listen to me. Marriage isn't what you think it is. Mother, you're hurting me. On your wedding night, they will do things to you. Terrible things. Things no one warns you about because, Claudia. Lucius's voice cut through the garden like a blade. He stood in the doorway, face hard, eyes dangerous. A word. Now. Claudia's mouth went dry. She released Livia's hands. Go inside, she told her daughter. But now. Livia gathered her ruined flowers and fled. Lucius waited until she was gone. Then he crossed the garden in 4 long strides and grabbed Claudia's arm hard enough to bruise. What did you just tell her? The truth. His grip tightened. You will not poison her mind with your bitterness. Bitterness? Claudia laughed, sharp, broken. Is that what you call it? After what you did to me? After what you watched them do? What I did was legal, required. Every Roman marriage is rape dressed in ceremony. Say it. For once in your life, say what it actually is. Lucius's face went white, then red. He released her arm and stepped back. You're hysterical. I'm honest. You'll destroy her future. Fill her head with fears that will make her resist, make everything harder. Is that what you want? I want her to know what's coming. I want her to have a choice, something I never had. There is no choice. Lucius's voice rose. She's 13. In 2 years, I'll arrange a marriage that benefits this family. She'll submit to the rituals just as you did, just as every woman does. And you will not interfere. She's my daughter. She's my property. He said it flatly, matter of fact. Under Roman law, I own her until she transfers to her husband. You own nothing, not even yourself. The words hung in the air like poison. Claudia stared at this man she'd lived with for 16 years, had 3 children with, shared a house with. She'd never hated him more than in this moment. If you'd tell her anything, Lucius continued, anything that might jeopardize her marriage prospects, I will remove you from this household. Send you to live with distant relatives where you'll have no contact with the children. Do you understand? You can't. I can. The law gives me that right. He straightened his toga. Be a good mother. Prepare her for duty. Keep your trauma to yourself. He left. Claudia sat alone in the garden, jasmine scent thick in her throat, feeling the last piece of hope die inside her. I can't save her. Can't protect her. Can't even warn her properly. The machine will grind her up just like it ground me up, just like it ground my mother up. And I have to watch, have to smile, have to help it happen. She buried her face in her hands and made no sound at all, because Roman wives learned early silence was survival. 2 months later, Lucius announced the engagement. Senator Gaius Marcellus's son. Good family, excellent connections. The wedding would take place when Livia turned 15. Livia was thrilled. She spent hours talking about her future home, her future husband, her future role as a senator's wife. Claudia watched her daughter's excitement and wanted to scream. But she said nothing, helped plan the wedding, taught Livia household management, played the supportive mother. And every night, she lay awake imagining what would happen to Livia on her wedding night, imagining the wooden god, the witnesses, the examination. Please let them have changed it. Please let civilization have progressed. But Rome didn't change. Rome perfected something 800 years ago and saw no reason to fix what worked. The day before Livia's wedding, Claudia tried one last time. They were alone in Livia's room. The girl was trying on her flame-colored veil, spinning in circles, laughing at how the fabric fluttered. "Beautiful," she said. "Mother, did you feel this excited before your wedding?" "No." The word came out harder than intended. Livia stopped spinning. "Why not?" Claudia took a breath. "Choose words carefully. Don't spook her. Don't give Lucius reason to separate them. Marriage is complicated. Tomorrow night, your husband's household will have certain expectations." "I know. I'll manage his home, oversee slaves, host dinners." "Not just that. There will be rituals, private rituals, things that might seem strange." Livia's smile faded. "What kind of rituals?" "Religious ones. Fertility rites. Very old traditions that—" "Claudia." Lucius stood in the doorway. Again. How long had he been listening? "The dressmaker needs Livia downstairs. Final adjustments to the wedding tunic." Livia glanced between her parents, sensing tension, but not understanding it. "Go," Claudia said quietly. After Livia left, Lucius closed the door. "I warned you." "I'm preparing her, like you said." "You're frightening her." "Good. She should be frightened." Lucius crossed the room and grabbed Claudia's jaw, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Tomorrow, you will smile. You will celebrate. You will give your daughter away with joy on your face. If you do anything to disrupt this wedding, I will make the rest of your life a nightmare. Do you understand?" His grip tightened until pain shot through her jaw. "Do you understand?" "Yes." The word came out strangled. He released her, left without another word. Claudia sat on her daughter's bed, surrounded by wedding preparations, tasting blood, where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek. "Tomorrow, I'll give my daughter to the machine. Tomorrow, I'll smile while they destroy her. Tomorrow, I'll become what my mother was, a woman who knew and did nothing." She didn't sleep that night. The wedding was magnificent. Lucius had spared no expense. Livia looked radiant in her saffron veil flower wreath in her braided hair, excitement lighting her face from within. Her husband-to-be was 24 now, handsome, well-spoken. He looked at Livia like she was a prize he'd won. Because she is. That's all she is to him. A prize, property, a womb. The temple ceremony proceeded flawlessly. The sheep died quietly. The omens were favorable. The contracts were signed. Livia spoke the ancient words, "Ubi tu Gaius ego Gaia," and Claudia watched her daughter legally cease to exist. The procession through Rome featured the same obscene songs, the same crude jokes, the same walnut throwing that left bruises. Livia laughed through it all, thinking it was celebration. Not understanding it was warning. They reached her new husband's villa as sunset bled across the sky. The doorway was decorated with wreaths and torches. Beautiful, welcoming, a trap. Livia's husband lifted her over the threshold. She laughed, delighted by the tradition. The door closed, and Claudia stood on the street outside listening. She told herself she was leaving, should leave, had no choice but to leave. But her feet wouldn't move. Other family members dispersed. The crowd scattered. The torchbearers extinguished their flames and departed. Claudia remained, waiting, for what she didn't know. Some sign that it would be different this time. Some proof that Rome had evolved past its cruelty. An hour passed, maybe more. The sky darkened from red to purple to black. Then she heard it. Livia's scream, high, terrified. The sound of innocence dying. It cut through the villa walls, through the night, through Claudia's chest like a spear. She took a step toward the door, then another. Her hand reached for the handle. I can stop this. I can burst in there. I can... The door opened. A slave stood in the entrance. Middle-aged woman, face carved from stone. You should leave Domina. That's my daughter, and you cannot help her. This is her wedding night, her husband's right, Roman law. Another scream from inside, louder, more desperate. Please, Claudia whispered, please just let me. No. The slave's voice wasn't cruel, just tired, infinitely tired. Go home. There's nothing to be done. Every bride goes through this. Your daughter will survive, just like you survived. Surviving isn't enough. In Rome, it's all we have. The slave closed the door. Claudia stood alone on the empty street, listening to her daughter's screams fade into muffled sobs, understanding with perfect clarity that she'd just become her mother, a woman who knew, who remembered, who could do nothing. The inheritance of silence passed from generation to generation, mother to daughter, grandmother to granddaughter, an unbroken chain of women who endured and said nothing. She walked home through dark streets, entered her own house, went to her room. Lucius found her there an hour later. It's done, he said. I received word. The marriage is consummated, properly witnessed. Livia performed her duties adequately. Adequately. As if her daughter's violation was a test she'd passed. You heard her scream, Claudia said flatly. Every bride screams the first time. It's normal. Normal. She laughed. No humor, just emptiness. That word, you all use that word like it means something. It does. It means this is how things are, how they've always been, how they'll always be. Then maybe things shouldn't be. Lucius stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. You're upset. I understand. Giving away a daughter is emotional. He turned to leave. You'll feel better in the morning. After he left, Claudia sat in darkness feeling something crack inside her, not breaking. She'd broken years ago. This was different. This was calcification, the final hardening of whatever soft thing she'd once been. I did this. I let this happen. I gave my daughter to wolves and called it duty, just like my mother did to me. And one day, if Livia has daughters, she'll do the same to them. Because that's what Roman mothers do. We feed our children to the machine. We smile while doing it. And we never, ever speak the truth out loud. The next morning, Claudia went to the market. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, hearing fragments of conversation around her. Beautiful wedding yesterday. Senator's son, excellent match. The girl looked so happy. Happy. Before she knew what happiness cost. At a fabric merchant's stall, Claudia overheard two older women talking. My granddaughter marries next month, 13 years old. Such a sweet child. The first night is always hard, but they adjust. We all adjusted. Did you ever tell your daughter before her wedding? A pause. Then no. What good would it do? Better she goes in innocent, less time to dread it. That's what I thought too. Kinder to let them be surprised. Surprised. As if violation was a gift to be unwrapped. Claudia wanted to grab these women, shake them, scream that this wasn't kindness, it was cowardice. But she said nothing, bought her fabric, moved on. Because she was one of them now. Another Roman matron who knew the truth and kept it locked away. Another link in the chain. 3 days later, Livia came to visit. She moved slowly, carefully, like every step hurt. Her face was composed, mature, the girlish excitement gone. Replaced by something older, harder. They sat in the garden where they'd made flower chains. That felt like another lifetime now. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Livia whispered, "You knew." Not a question, an accusation. "Yes." "You tried to warn me. Father stopped you." "Yes." Livia's hands twisted in her lap. The wooden god, the examination, the witnesses watching while her voice broke. Claudia reached for her daughter's hand. Livia pulled away. Don't touch me with the same hands that helped prepare me for that. The words cut deeper than any blade. "I'm sorry," Claudia whispered. "I'm so sorry." Sorry doesn't change anything. Sorry doesn't undo what they did, what you let them do. I had no choice. You could have refused, could have run away with me, could have done something other than smile and hand me over like I was livestock being sold. Livia, you don't understand. In Rome there is no escape, no alternative. If I'd refused, your father would have— I don't care what father would have done. Livia's voice rose sharp with grief and rage. You're my mother. You were supposed to protect me. I wanted to. Gods, I wanted to. But you didn't. You chose your comfort over my safety, your security over my body. Livia stood. I won't make that mistake. When I have daughters, I'll tell them the truth. I'll prepare them. She stopped. The fight drained out of her face. No, I won't. Will I? Her voice went hollow. I'll do exactly what you did, what grandmother did, because there is no other choice. The machine is too big, too strong, and we're just, she started crying. Silent tears, the kind that hurt too much for sound. Claudia stood and wrapped her arms around her daughter. This time Livia didn't pull away. They held each other in the garden where flowers grew and sunlight fell and everything looked peaceful, beautiful, normal. And both women understood they were trapped, had always been trapped, would always be trapped, because Rome had perfected something 800 years ago. A system so complete, so self-reinforcing that even its victims became its enforcers. Women policing women, mothers sacrificing daughters, grandmothers teaching granddaughters that submission was virtue and silence was survival. The machine didn't need men to run it. It ran on the complicity of women who'd been broken so thoroughly they broke others rather than fight. After Livia left, Claudia returned to her room, pulled out the small wooden box where she kept private things. Inside was a letter. Her mother had sent it years ago, shortly before she died in Pompeii. Claudia had read it once, then locked it away. Too painful to confront. Now she opened it again. The handwriting was shaky, aged. Julia had been 62 when she wrote this. Not old by some standards, but worn down by decades of silence. My daughter, the letter began. By the time you read this, I'll be dead. Good. I don't want to live in this world anymore. I need you to know I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't warn you. Sorry I didn't save you. Sorry I failed as your mother in every way that mattered. But I need you to understand something else. I didn't fail because I was weak. I failed because the system is perfect. Rome has built something that can't be fought from within. Every path of resistance leads to destruction. Every act of rebellion harms the rebel more than the oppressor. You think you could have saved Livia. You couldn't. If you'd refused to participate, Lucius would have removed you. The wedding would have happened anyway, except Livia would have faced it alone, without even your presence for comfort. So you participated, and hated yourself for it, just like I did, just like my mother did. This is Rome's genius. It makes mothers into monsters, turns our love into the chains that bind our daughters. And there's no escape. Not for us. Not in our lifetime. Maybe someday. Maybe some future generation will break free. But that's their battle. Not ours. We're already dead, Claudia. We died on our wedding nights. What remained was just ghosts going through motions, pretending we were alive. I'm tired of pretending. That's why I'm letting go. You don't have to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But please understand, I loved you. I always loved you. Even when I hurt you, especially when I hurt you. Love in Rome means preparing your daughters for slaughter while calling it marriage. And we all do it. Because we have no choice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's all I have left to say. Your mother. Claudia read the letter 3 times, then carefully folded it and returned it to the box. Her mother was right. About everything. Rome had created a perfect trap. One that turned victims into perpetrators. That made loving mothers into accomplices. And there was no escape. Not for Claudia. Not for Livia. Not for any woman born into this empire that built marble temples atop silent suffering. The machine would grind on. Generation after generation. Century after century. fed by the bodies of girls who became women, who became mothers, who fed their own daughters into the same machine. And Rome would call it civilization, would write histories celebrating its laws, its order, its greatness, would never mention the cost, the bodies, the broken women who held everything together while being systematically destroyed. Claudia understood now why so many older women looked hollow, why they moved through life like ghosts, why they rarely smiled with their eyes. They were the walking dead, killed on wedding nights decades ago, still going through motions, still performing duties, still pretending life was bearable. She was one of them now, and so was her daughter. The inheritance of silence passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, like a curse that couldn't be broken, only spoken once, in whispers, between women who trusted each other enough to admit this is what marriage cost, then locked away again, hidden, buried, while Rome celebrated weddings and sang fertility songs and threw walnuts, while magistrates praised Roman virtue and philosophers wrote about civilization and poets composed verses about wifely devotion, while the machine ground on and on and on. Perfect, eternal, unbreakable, built on silence. 20 years passed like a slow death. Claudia turned 55. Her hair had gone completely grey. Her hands developed the tremor that marked women who'd held too much inside for too long. Livia had 3 daughters of her own now. The oldest was 12, and the cycle was preparing to repeat. Claudia sat in her garden, the same garden where she'd tried to warn Livia, where she'd made flower chains with an innocent girl who no longer existed when her son Marcus arrived. He was 38 now, a magistrate like his father, married, 2 sons of his own. "Mother." He kissed her cheek. Formal, distant. They'd never been close. "Marcus." "I came to discuss Livia's oldest. Father wants to arrange her marriage. He's found a suitable match." Claudia's blood turned to ice water. "She's 12. The engagement would be announced now. Wedding when she turns 15. Standard practice." "No." Marcus blinked. "Excuse me." "I said no. She's too young." "She's the same age you were when grandfather arranged your marriage. The same age Livia was." "Exactly." Claudia stood. "And I won't watch another generation destroyed." "Destroyed, mother, you're being dramatic. Marriage is rape dressed in ceremony. Say it. For once, someone in this family say what it actually is." Marcus stepped back like she'd struck him. "You've lost your mind." "No, I found it. After 55 years of pretending, I'm finally telling the truth." She moved closer. "Do you know what they did to me on my wedding night? What they did to your sister?" "That's private." "Private?" "It happened in front of 7 witnesses. There was nothing private about it." Her voice rose. "They made me sit on a wooden phallus while strangers watched. Then a physician examined me like livestock. Then your father—" "Stop." Marcus's face had gone white. "I don't want to hear this." "Why?" "Because it's uncomfortable. Because it makes you question everything you believe about Roman civilization." "Because it's irrelevant. What happened to you was legal, proper, required by tradition. And that makes it right." Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time in his life, he had no answer. "You have sons," Claudia continued. "When they marry, they'll participate in the same rituals. They'll watch their brides be violated. They'll perform the violation themselves. And you'll attend. You'll witness. You'll sign the documents, because that's what Roman men do. What would you have me do instead? Refuse to marry them. Refuse to participate in the foundation of Roman society." "Yes," the word hung between them like a sword. "You're asking me to destroy my sons' futures, make them social outcasts, ruin their careers. I'm asking you to be better than your father, better than every Roman man who's chosen tradition over humanity." Marcus shook his head. "I came here to inform you of family plans, not to debate philosophy with a bitter old woman." "Then leave. Go prepare your niece for slaughter. Follow the traditions. Be a good Roman." He turned toward the door, stopped. "Did you hate father?" His voice was quiet. "All those years, every single day." Marcus looked back at her. Something cracked in his expression. I thought you loved each other. Love. Claudia laughed bitter broken. Your father bought me when I was 17, used me like property for 43 years. And you think that's love. You stayed. You never left. Where would I go? Roman law gave me no rights, no property, no existence outside his household. I stayed because I had no choice. You had children with him. 3 children. That must have meant something. It meant he raped me regularly enough to produce heirs. It meant I performed my legal duty. She met her son's eyes. Do you want to know the truth, Marcus? I hoped every one of you would be stillborn. Because then, I wouldn't have to watch my daughters suffer what I suffered. Wouldn't have to watch my sons become what your father was. Marcus recoiled like she'd stabbed him. You didn't mean that. I meant every word. He left without another word. Claudia sank back onto the bench, shaking. She'd finally said it, finally spoken the truth she'd carried for decades. And it changed nothing. The engagement would be announced. The wedding would happen. Livia's daughter would be destroyed, just like Livia had been destroyed. Just like Claudia had been destroyed. The machine was too powerful, too perfect, too deeply embedded in every aspect of Roman life. One woman's truth couldn't stop it. But 3 hours later, Livia arrived. She burst into the garden, face flushed, breathing hard. Marcus told me what you said. Of course he did. Is it true that you hoped we'd be stillborn? Claudia looked at her daughter. This woman who'd never quite recovered from her wedding night, who moved through life with careful control as if any lapse might shatter her completely. Yes. Livia's eyes filled with tears. How could you? Because I knew what awaited you, knew I couldn't protect you, knew that by bringing you into this world, I was feeding you to the machine. Claudia's voice cracked. What kind of mother does that? Every mother in Rome does that. Exactly. We're all complicit, all guilty, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Livia sat beside her mother. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, Marcus said, Father wants to arrange a marriage for my Julia. I tried to stop it. You can't stop it. No one can. Livia's hands twisted in her lap. But I've been thinking, what if we told her, prepared her properly this time? Your father tried to stop me from warning you. My husband isn't like father. He's... Livia paused. He's not cruel, not kind, but not cruel. He might listen. And if he doesn't, then at least I tried. At least I didn't stay silent like... She stopped. Like I did. I wasn't going to say that. But you thought it. Claudia gripped her daughter's hand. You're right to think it. I failed you. I won't fail your daughter too. What are you suggesting? Tell her everything. Tonight, before the engagement is announced. Before she starts dreaming about marriage, tell her exactly what the wedding night involves. Father will never allow it. Then don't tell him. Claudia leaned closer. Bring Julia here tomorrow. I'll tell her myself. Your father has no authority over me anymore. He's 73, barely leaves his bed. What's he going to do? Livia stared at her mother. You've changed. I'm dying. The words came out flat, matter of fact. Livia's face went white. What? The physicians confirmed it last month. Something in my womb, growing, killing me slowly. I have maybe a year, less probably. Mother, don't cry for me. I welcome it. Claudia smiled, the first genuine smile in years. 43 years of marriage, 43 years of being property, 43 years of silence. I'm tired, Livia, so tired. Death feels like freedom. Does father know? I haven't told him. Don't plan to. Let him find out when I collapse. She squeezed Livia's hand. But before I die, I want to do one thing right. I want to save one girl. Just one. Your Julia. Even if telling her makes everything harder, even if knowledge makes her resist, and the resistance makes her wedding night worse. Yes, because at least she'll know it's wrong. At least she won't spend her life wondering if there's something broken inside her for hating it. At least she'll understand she's not alone. Livia sat silent for a long moment, then nodded. Tomorrow, I'll bring her tomorrow. The next afternoon, Julia arrived. She was small for 12, dark hair like her grandmother, bright eyes that still held innocence. "Grandmother!" She ran into Claudia's arms. "Mother says you have something important to tell me." "I do. Sit." They sat on the garden bench. Livia stood nearby, hands clasped, face tense. "Julia," Claudia began, "what do you know about marriage?" "It's when a girl goes to live with her husband. She manages his house, has babies, makes him proud." "That's what they tell you. But there's more. Things they don't tell girls because—" Claudia paused. How to say this? Because the truth is ugly. Julia's smile faded. "What truth?" "On your wedding night, after the public ceremony ends, there will be private rituals, religious rites that happen inside your new home." "I know. Offerings to household gods. Prayers for fertility." "Not just prayers. There's a god called Mutinus Tutinus. Very old, very secret, and brides are required to honor him in a specific way." "How?" Claudia took a breath. "There's a wooden statue, carved to look like male anatomy, and you'll be required to sit on it while witnesses watch." Julia blinked. "I don't understand." "The statue is shaped like a phallus, a penis, and you'll have to mount it, naked, in front of your husband and several others." The color drained from Julia's face. "That's not real. That can't be real." "It is. I did it. Your mother did it. Every Roman bride does it." "But why? Why would anyone?" "To demonstrate submission, to invoke fertility, to break your will before the consummation." Claudia kept her voice steady. "After that, a physician will examine you, internally, document your virginity. Then your husband will consummate the marriage while a woman called the pronuba observes from the doorway. After that, another examination to verify completion." Julia stood abruptly. "No, no, you're lying. Mother, she's lying, isn't she?" Livia's face was stone. "She's telling the truth." "But that's... Julia's breath came in gasps. "That's rape. That's public rape." "Yes," Claudia said quietly. "That's exactly what it is." Julia backed away from them both. "I won't do it. When father arranges my marriage, I'll refuse. I'll run away. There's nowhere to run. Roman law gives your father complete authority over you until you marry. Then your husband has complete authority. You own nothing, not even yourself. Then I'll die first. I'll kill myself before I let anyone—" "Julia," Livia moved forward, gripped her daughter's shoulders. "Listen to me. I'm not telling you this to make you afraid. I'm telling you so you'll know it's not your fault, so you won't spend years thinking you're broken for hating it, so you'll understand that the system is evil, not you. How is that better? How does knowing help if I can't escape? Because knowledge is the first step toward change." Claudia stood. "You're right to be angry, right to call it rape, right to hate everything about it. That rage, don't let them take it from you. Don't let them convince you it's normal or acceptable or your duty." "But I still have to go through it." "Yes, the machine is too strong for one girl to fight. But you can refuse to participate in its perpetuation. When you have daughters, you tell them the truth from the beginning. You teach them that Roman marriage is violence. You raise them to question everything Rome tells them about women. Man, and what good does that do if they still have to submit? Maybe none. Maybe it just means more generations of women who know they're being brutalized." Claudia's voice hardened. "But maybe enough women with that knowledge will eventually break the machine. Not in our lifetime. Not in yours. But someday." Julia stared at her grandmother. Tears streamed down her face, but her jaw was set. Determined. "I hate Rome." "Good. So do I. So does your mother. So did my mother. So have countless women throughout Rome's history. We're just the first ones brave enough to say it out loud." "Will you tell grandfather? Tell him I refuse to marry?" "I'll tell him. He won't listen. The engagement will be announced tomorrow." "Then what's the point of any of this?" Julia's voice broke. "Why tell me if nothing changes?" "Because silence is how the machine survives. Every woman who stays silent gives it power. Every mother who doesn't warn her daughter makes it stronger." Claudia pulled Julia into her arms. I stayed silent too long. Let fear make me complicit. But I'm done. We're all done. No more silence. That night, Lucius summoned Claudia to his study. He sat behind his desk, the same desk where he'd managed his fortune for 40 years, where he'd signed the contracts that bought her, where he'd documented every aspect of their legal relationship. Marcus tells me you've lost your mind. No, I found it. He says you told him you hated me, that you hoped your children would be stillborn. All true? Lucius's face reddened. 43 years. 43 years I provided for you, protected you, gave you status and security, and used me like property, violated me repeatedly, took everything that made me human and turned it into legal obligation. I followed the law. The law is evil. Claudia's voice rose. Just because something is legal doesn't make it right. Just because Rome has done it for 800 years doesn't mean it should continue. You're hysterical. I'm dying. That stopped him. What? Something in my womb. The physicians say I have less than a year. So your authority over me ends soon. Until then, I'll speak the truth you've silenced for 4 decades. Lucius stood, walked to the window, stared out at the darkening sky. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. I followed tradition, did what every Roman husband does, what my father did, what his father did, what Marcus will do when his sons marry. And that makes it acceptable. It makes it Roman. He turned to face her. Everything we are, everything we've built, the greatest civilization in human history, built on these foundations. Remove them and everything collapses. Then let it collapse. A civilization built on systematic brutalization of half its population deserves to collapse. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. Claudia moved closer. Your granddaughter Julia knows the truth now. I told her everything. And she'll tell her daughters. And they'll tell theirs. And eventually enough women will refuse to stay silent. Enough will resist. And your perfect machine will break. It won't. Women have been trying to resist for 800 years. The machine always wins. Maybe. But at least we tried. At least we refused to be complicit in our own oppression. She turned toward the door. The engagement will be announced tomorrow. I can't stop it. But Julia will walk into that marriage with her eyes open. She'll know exactly what's being done to her. And she'll never forgive the men who did it, including you. Claudia, we're done talking. We've been done for 43 years. I just didn't realize it until now. She left him standing in his study, surrounded by the documents and contracts and legal instruments that had defined their relationship. All of it meaningless. All of it built on violence dressed in ceremony. The next day, the engagement was announced. Julia's future husband was 23, son of a prominent senator, excellent connections. The wedding would take place in 3 years when Julia turned 15. At the announcement party, Julia stood silent while relatives congratulated her, praised the match, talked about what a lucky girl she was. She met her future husband. He looked at her the same way Lucius had looked at Claudia 43 years ago, assessing value, calculating return on investment. Julia smiled, said all the appropriate words, played her part perfectly. But when she met Claudia's eyes across the room, her gaze was steel, unbroken, defiant. She knows. She understands. She'll never forget. After the party, Livia found Claudia in the garden. Was I wrong to let you tell her? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Claudia sighed. But at least she won't spend years thinking she's broken. At least she'll understand she's not alone. What if it makes her wedding night worse? What if knowing makes her resist, and then she resists, then she fights, then she refuses to go quietly? Claudia gripped her daughter's hand. We've been going quietly for 800 years. Maybe it's time to scream. And if screaming doesn't help, it helps us, even if it changes nothing, even if the machine grinds on forever. At least we stop pretending. At least we stop lying to ourselves and our daughters. At least we call it what it is. Livia sat beside her mother. I wish you weren't dying. I don't. Death is the only escape Rome gives women like us, the only freedom we're allowed. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Welcome to Roman civilization, built on sad truths no one speaks. They sat together as sunset turned the sky blood red. Two women, 3 generations of trauma between them. 4, if you counted Julia. All of them trapped in a machine that turned mothers into monsters and daughters into property and violence into virtue. But for the first time in 800 years, some of them were refusing to stay silent. It wasn't much. It wouldn't break the machine. Wouldn't save Julia or her future daughters. But it was something. A crack in the foundation. Small, barely visible, but present. And cracks Claudia knew had a way of spreading. The cracks spread faster than Claudia expected. 2 weeks after Julia learned the truth, Livia's younger daughters started asking questions. Why had their sister stopped smiling? Why did she flinch when their father mentioned marriage? Why did she spend hours in grandmother's garden, talking in whispers? Tell us, the middle daughter Octavia, aged 10, demanded. Tell us what you told Julia. Livia looked at Claudia. They're too young. I was 9 when I first heard the word marriage and thought it sounded magical, Claudia said. Better they know now, before the lies take root. So they told them everything. The wooden god, the examinations, the witnessed consummation. Octavia vomited. The youngest Fulvia, aged 7, just stared, silent, processing. Then Fulvia said, So when father tells mother it's time for bed, he's hurting her. The room went cold. Livia's face drained of colour. That's different. How you said husbands have complete authority, that wives must submit whenever demanded. That's what father does to you, isn't it? Fulvia, you don't understand. I do understand. Father rapes you, legally. And you can't say no because Roman law says your body belongs to him. Fulvia's voice was flat. 7 years old and already seeing clearly what adults spent lifetimes avoiding. That's what you're teaching us. That's what we have to look forward to. Livia looked at her mother desperately. I can't do this. I can't destroy their innocence like this. Their innocence was always going to be destroyed, Claudia said quietly. The only question is whether they understand what's happening when it happens, or whether they spend years thinking they're broken for hating their own marriages. But they're children. So was I. So were you. So is Julia. Claudia turned to her granddaughters. Listen to me, all of you. What I'm about to tell you is the most important thing you'll ever hear. Are you listening? 3 pairs of eyes locked on her. The system is evil. Rome is evil. Everything they tell you about virtue and duty and honor, it's lies built on the bodies of women. They'll try to convince you that submission is noble, that suffering in silence is strength, that producing heirs is your highest purpose. Don't believe them, not for 1 second. But what can we do? Octavia's voice shook. If we can't escape, if we can't fight, what's the point of knowing? The point is this. You refuse to participate in the lie. When they violate you, you call it violation. When they hurt you, you call it pain. When they claim it's tradition, you call it rape. You never ever let them make you believe that what they're doing is acceptable. And then what? We spend our whole lives angry and miserable. Yes. Better angry and aware than broken and complicit. Better to hate the machine than become part of it. Julia spoke up from the doorway. No one had noticed her arrive. Grandmother's right. I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks. At first I wanted to die. Thought there was no point living if this was my future. But then I realized dying is what they want. Silent women. Broken women. Women so destroyed they can't resist. She walked into the room, stood beside Claudia. So I'm going to live. I'm going to walk into that marriage with my eyes open. I'm going to endure everything they do to me, and I'm going to remember every detail, every violation, every humiliation, every witness who stood by and did nothing. To what end? Livia asked. So I can teach my daughters, and they can teach theirs, and eventually enough women will know the truth that the machine can't function anymore. It depends on our complicity, our silence. our willingness to pretend it's normal. Take that away and it falls apart. That will take generations, maybe centuries. Then it takes centuries, but it starts now, with us. Julia looked at her younger sisters. You need to know. You need to be ready. You need to refuse to forget. Octavia nodded slowly. I won't forget. Me neither, Fulvia said. Livia covered her face with her hands. I've destroyed them. I've taken away their childhood and given them nightmares instead. You've given them truth, Claudia said. The nightmares were always coming. At least now they'll understand they're not alone in having them. 3 days later, Octavia told a friend at the market. The friend told her mother. The mother told her husband. By evening, 5 families had heard the story. By the next day, half the neighborhood knew that Claudia Sabina was filling young girls' heads with lies about Roman marriage. Marcus arrived at Claudia's house, face purple with rage. Do you have any idea what you've done? The entire district is talking about our family, about how you're spreading poison, trying to destroy Roman traditions. I'm spreading truth. You're spreading hysteria. Young girls crying to their mothers about wedding nights. Mothers questioning their own marriages. Fathers demanding to know if their wives are teaching daughters to resist. Good. Marcus stared at her. Good. You're destroying social order. Creating chaos. Making it impossible for families to function. Families shouldn't function this way. Built on violence. Sustained by silence. Passed down like inherited disease. You're insane. Father was right. You've completely lost your mind. Your father participated in my rape for 43 years, and you think I'm the insane one. Claudia laughed. That's the problem, Marcus. Rome has normalized atrocity so thoroughly that speaking against it sounds crazy. I'm taking the girls. Julia, Octavia, Fulvia. They're coming to my house where they'll be properly educated, away from your influence. You can't. They're Livia's daughters. And their father has given me permission. As male head of his household, he agrees they need to be removed from this toxic environment. Livia agreed to this. Livia has no legal authority. Her husband makes these decisions. Before Claudia could respond, Livia burst through the door. Don't you dare! Don't you dare take my daughters! It's not your decision, Marcus said. I'll fight you. You have no legal standing, no rights, no authority over your own children. Marcus's voice was cold. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To show your daughters how powerless women really are? Congratulations. They're learning. He left. Livia collapsed onto a bench, shaking. He's right. I can't stop him. Can't protect them. Can't do anything. Yes, you can, Claudia said quietly. How I have no rights, no power, no. You have your voice, and you can choose whether to use it. What good is my voice against Roman law? Alone, maybe none. But what if it's not alone? What if other women speak too? What if enough mothers refuse to stay silent that fathers can't suppress us all? That's fantasy. Rome has crushed every women's rebellion for 800 years. Because we've always fought alone, one woman at a time, isolated, easy to dismiss as hysterical or insane. Claudia gripped her daughter's shoulders. But what if this time is different? What if instead of whispering in gardens, we speak in the forum? Instead of warning daughters privately, we warn them publicly? Instead of pretending Roman marriage is sacred, we call it what it is, where everyone can hear. They'll call us traitors, enemies of Rome. They'll do exactly what they've always done. Try to silence us, dismiss us, destroy us. Claudia's voice hardened. But here's what they don't know, I'm already dying. I have nothing left to lose, and that makes me very dangerous. The next morning, Claudia walked to the forum. She moved slowly. The cancer made every step agony, but she kept walking. By the time she reached the center of Rome's public square, a crowd had gathered. Word had spread about the mad old woman who was speaking against Roman marriage. People came to watch, to mock, to see what insanity looked like. Claudia climbed onto the speaker's platform, normally reserved for politicians and magistrates, and faced the crowd. My name is Claudia Sabina, she said. Her voice carried across the forum, strong, clear, unbreaking. And I'm here to tell you what Roman marriage really is. The crowd murmured. A few men shouted for her to get down. 43 years ago, I married Lucius Flavius Sabinus. I was 17 years old. On my wedding night, I was forced to sit naked on a wooden phallus while 7 strangers watched. Then a physician examined me internally, documented my virginity. Then my husband raped me while a woman called a pronuba observed to ensure proper completion. Then another examination to verify I'd been successfully violated. The crowd went silent, shocked, horrified. This is Roman marriage, not the public ceremony, not the flower wreaths and scattered walnuts, the private rituals that happen behind closed doors, the ones no one talks about, the ones we've kept secret for 800 years. Lies, someone shouted. Is it? Ask your wife, ask your mother, ask any woman who's been married. Ask them if I'm lying. Silence. You can't ask them because they've been trained not to speak, trained to accept violation as duty, trained to smile while their humanity is systematically destroyed. Claudia's voice rose. But I'm done being trained, done being silent, done pretending that Roman civilization is anything other than systematic brutalization of half its population. More men began shouting, demanding she be removed, calling for guards. But the women in the crowd stood silent, frozen, staring at Claudia like she was a ghost come to life. Because she was saying what they'd all thought, what they'd all felt, what none of them had ever dared speak. My granddaughter is engaged to be married, Claudia continued. In 3 years, when she turns 15, she'll endure exactly what I endured, what my daughter endured, what every bride endures. Unless we stop it, unless enough of us refuse to stay silent. Get down! A magistrate pushed through the crowd. You're disturbing the peace, spreading lies and discord. I'm speaking truth. If truth disturbs your peace, then your peace is built on lies. 2 guards grabbed her arms, started dragging her off the platform. But before they could remove her completely, women in the crowd began to speak. She's not lying. The voice was quiet, barely audible, but it came from a middle-aged woman near the front. On my wedding night, they made me sit on the wooden god, made me submit to examination, made my husband consummate the marriage while witnesses observed. Everything she said is true. Another voice, it happened to me too. Then another, and me. Then dozens, and me, and me, and me. The forum erupted, men shouting denials, women weeping, guards trying to restore order. Claudia looked at the growing chorus of women speaking truth for the first time in their lives and smiled. This is how it starts. Not with rebellion, not with violence. With truth spoken loud enough that lies can't cover it anymore. The guards dragged her away, threw her in a cell beneath the forum, left her on cold stone that made her cancer scream. But Claudia didn't care, because the truth was out now, loose in Rome's streets, spreading like fire. And fire once started was very hard to contain. Marcus came to the cell that evening. You've destroyed us, destroyed our family's reputation, made us a laughingstock across Rome. I've freed us, freed every woman who's been too afraid to speak. You've accomplished nothing. By tomorrow, the Senate will issue a statement condemning you, declaring everything you said to be the ravings of a dying, bitter woman. Order will be restored. Maybe, but women will remember. Every mother who heard me speak will look at her daughter differently. Every wife will look at her husband and see rapist. Every girl being prepared for marriage will know exactly what awaits her. And you think that helps? You think making them afraid helps anyone? I think refusing to be complicit helps. I think calling evil by its name helps. I think breaking 800 years of silence helps. Claudia leaned forward. You're afraid, Marcus. Not of what I said. Of what happens when women stop pretending. When we stop participating in our own oppression. When we stop raising sons to become you. His face went white. I'm nothing like Father. You're exactly like Father. You followed the same traditions, made the same choices, participated in the same system. The only difference is I'm forcing you to see it clearly, and you hate me for it. I came to tell you father is dying. The shame of what you've done, it's killed him. He collapsed this morning. The physicians say he has days at most. Good. Let him die knowing his perfect world is cracking. Let him die understanding that his granddaughters will never forgive him. Let him die afraid. Marcus stood. You've become a monster. No, I've stopped pretending the monsters are heroes. Claudia's voice softened. I loved you once, Marcus, when you were small, before Rome turned you into this. I mourn what you could have been. But I won't apologize for telling the truth, even if it destroys everything. He left without another word. 3 days later, Lucius died. The official cause was heart failure. The truth was shame. They released Claudia from the cell to attend his funeral. She stood at the pyre watching flames consume the man who'd owned her for 43 years, feeling nothing. No grief, no relief, just emptiness. After the funeral, Livia approached. The girls are back with me. Marcus's wife heard what you said in the forum. She told Marcus that if he took my daughters, she'd speak publicly about her own wedding night. He backed down. Good. Mother, what you did speaking in the forum, it's spreading. Women across Rome are talking, some quietly, some openly. There's even talk of a petition to the Senate, requesting reform of marriage laws. It won't pass. I know, but the fact that women are demanding it at all, that's new. That's because of you. Claudia felt the cancer twist in her belly. Not long now. Weeks. Maybe days. I wish I could see how it ends. Whether this crack becomes a break. Whether Rome changes or crushes the rebellion. You won't see it. None of us will. This will take generations. Livia gripped her mother's hand. But you started it. You spoke when silence was easier. You broke the pattern. And whatever happens next, it's because you refused to die quietly. Make sure Julia knows. Make sure all the girls know, not just our family. Every girl in Rome. Tell them what marriage costs. Tell them they don't have to pretend it's acceptable. Tell them to speak. Always speak. I will. I promise. Claudia died 6 weeks later. The cancer finally won. Her funeral was small, quiet. Few attended. The scandal had made her family untouchable. But at the cremation, something unexpected happened. Women came, dozens at first, then hundreds. Women Claudia had never met. Women who'd heard her speak in the forum. Women who'd finally found the courage to acknowledge their own trauma. They stood silent around the pyre, not weeping, not mourning, just present, witnessing. Julia stepped forward and spoke. My grandmother was called many things in her final weeks. Traitor, madwoman, enemy of Rome. But here's what she actually was honest. She refused to lie about what marriage cost her, what it cost all of us. And that honesty, that refusal to participate in 800 years of silence, that's her legacy. She lit the pyre. Flames consumed Claudia's body, released her from the prison of flesh, freed her at last. And the women watching understood this was the beginning, not the end. 10 years passed. Julia married at 15. Endured everything her grandmother had warned about. But she didn't break, didn't submit silently, didn't pretend it was acceptable. She spoke, loudly, constantly, teaching her own daughters from birth what Roman marriage really was. Other women followed. The whisper network grew. More mothers warned daughters. More wives spoke truth to each other. More women refused to stay complicit. The Senate issued multiple decrees condemning the hysteria. Priests denounced women who spoke against sacred traditions. Philosophers wrote treatises defending Roman marriage as the foundation of civilization. But the crack kept spreading. 20 years after Claudia's death, the first marriage reform law passed. Minor. Barely significant. It required that brides be at least 16 instead of 15. It wasn't much. It didn't end the rituals, didn't stop the examinations, didn't give women real rights. But it proved something: the machine could be changed. Slowly, painfully. One small law at a time. 30 years after Claudia died, Christianity began spreading through Rome. The new religion had radical ideas about women, about consent, about marriage as mutual partnership rather than property transfer. The old ways started dying. Not quickly, not easily, but dying nonetheless. The statues of Mutinus Tutinus were destroyed. The Pronuba's role disappeared. The witnessed consummations ended. Not because Rome became enlightened, but because enough women refused to stay silent that change became inevitable. 50 years after Claudia's death, her great-great-granddaughter wrote a letter that survived into the historical record. My grandmother told me about Claudia Sabina, about the woman who spoke truth in the forum when truth could kill, about how one voice became many voices, about how silence once broken could never be fully restored. I never met her, but I carry her legacy, as do all women who refuse to pretend that violation is virtue. She died believing she'd failed, believing the machine was too strong to break. But she was wrong. The machine is breaking, slowly, one crack at a time, and it started with her. Rome fell eventually, not because of women speaking truth, but because empires always fall. But the truth Claudia spoke outlived the empire, travelled forward through centuries, whispered from mother to daughter, recorded in fragments, preserved in the anger of women who refused to forget. And that truth, that simple, devastating truth that systematic violation dressed in ceremony and law was still violation, that civilization built on brutalization wasn't civilized, that silence was complicity, that truth became the foundation for every women's movement that followed. Not because one woman spoke, but because one woman spoke first, and others followed, and the chorus grew too loud to silence. Rome tried to erase these stories, tried to bury the truth about what marriage cost, tried to preserve the lie of noble tradition and sacred duty. But truth once spoken can never be fully erased. It survives in fragments, in whispered stories, in the rage of daughters who refuse to accept what their mothers endured. Claudia Sabina died believing she'd failed. But failure looks different from a distance. Sometimes breaking the silence is the victory. Sometimes speaking truth to power, even when power wins, plants seeds that grow in darkness until they break through stone. Sometimes one woman's voice raised against 800 years of tradition becomes the first crack in a foundation that everyone believed was eternal. The machine didn't break in Claudia's lifetime, but it broke. And when historians tried to understand why they found her name in the records, one woman, one truth, one refusal to die quietly. That's how empires fall. Not all at once, not obviously, not cleanly, but inevitably. Because silence can be maintained forever. But truth once spoken spreads like fire through dry wood. And Rome burned. Not in Claudia's lifetime, but eventually. Always eventually. That's the inheritance she left, not victory, but resistance. Not salvation, but refusal. Not peace, but the angry, unbreakable truth that some things should never be accepted no matter how long they've been tradition. Some violations should never be called virtue. Some silence should never be called strength. Some machinery should be broken, not oiled. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in the destruction of those who come after, even if it costs everything, even if you die alone, even if the world calls you traitor for telling the truth. Claudia Sabina lived 55 years in Rome's shadow, but her voice echoed for centuries in the light. And that makes all the difference.